The Speed Force had carried Barry Allen through dimensions before, but never like this. One moment he was chasing a temporal anomaly through the time stream, the next he was tumbling through a vortex of crimson energy that felt fundamentally wrong, ancient, violent, and utterly alien to the cosmic power that gave him his speed. When he finally crashed into solid ground, the impact drove the air from his lungs despite his enhanced durability. Barry pushed himself up, his red suit torn in several places, and immediately knew he wasn't in his Earth anymore. The sky above churned with colors that had no business existing together, sickly greens bleeding into deep purples, all backlit by two suns that seemed too close and too angry. The ground beneath his hands wasn't dirt or concrete, but something that felt like scorched bone, and the air tasted of copper and ash. "Where the hell?" he muttered, getting to his feet. His connection to the Speed Force felt muted, like trying to hear a familiar song through thick walls. He could still feel it, that constant hum of kinetic energy that had been his companion for years, but it was strained, filtered through whatever bizarre physics governed this place. A roar echoed across the landscape, followed by the clash of metal on metal. Barry's head snapped toward the sound. In the distance, rising from the cracked wasteland like a monument to brutality, stood an enormous coliseum. Its architecture was simultaneously ancient and alien, covered in carvings that seemed to writhe in his peripheral vision. Flames erupted from braziers along its walls, and the crowd's bloodthirsty cheers rolled across the barren land like thunder. "Tournament! Tournament! Tournament!" The chant was primal, hungry. Barry began to run, then stopped. His speed flickered. He moved fast, maybe 200 miles per hour, but nowhere near his usual capabilities. The Speed Force connection was there, but accessing it felt like trying to run through water. Every application of his power met resistance from this realm's fundamental nature. "Okay, Barry, think," he said to himself, a habit born from years of working problems out loud in his lab. Different dimension, different rules. The Speed Force exists across all realities, but this place... He looked at the tortured sky. This place is actively hostile to it. Another scream from the Colosseum, this one cutting off abruptly. Too abruptly. Despite the weakened connection to his powers, despite every instinct screaming that he was out of his depth, Barry Allen did what he always did. He ran toward the people who needed help. Even at a fraction of his speed, he covered the distance to the Colosseum in seconds, becoming a red blur that kicked up clouds of bone dust in his wake. The entrance was guarded by warriors in armor that looked like it had been forged from nightmares, sharp angles, cruel spikes, and designs that suggested the smiths took aesthetic inspiration from pain itself. They wore masks depicting demons and monsters, and they moved with the casual violence of men who killed for sport. "Halt, Earthrealm dog," one snarled, stepping forward with a curved blade that seemed to drink in the light. "This tournament is for warriors, not for..." Barry phased through the guard, the technique coming harder than it should, but still functional. The guard's sword passed through empty air as Barry's molecules temporarily destabilized, allowing him to slip past solid matter. He rematerialized inside the Colosseum proper and immediately wished he hadn't. The arena was a cathedral of carnage. The sand below was stained so deeply red it was nearly black, and the crowd, thousands of beings from dozens of species Barry didn't recognize, screamed for blood with religious fervor. In the center of it all, two figures fought with a savagery that made Barry's stomach turn. One was a man in yellow and black, his face concealed behind a skull-like mask with white eyes that burned with literal hellfire. Chains wrapped around his body, ending in a wickedly barbed kunai. The other was covered in ice-blue armor, his eyes cold and merciless behind his own mask. "Scorpion versus Sub-Zero," a voice boomed across the arena, emanating from everywhere and nowhere. "Let Mortal Kombat continue." The yellow warrior, Scorpion, moved with fluid precision, his spear flying from his palm. "Get over here!" The voice wasn't human. It was the sound of a soul condemned to eternal torture. The spear pierced Sub-Zero's shoulder, and Scorpion yanked him forward with impossible strength. What happened next made Barry move before conscious thought could stop him. He blurred down into the arena, faster than the crowd could track, even with his diminished speed, and caught Sub-Zero before Scorpion's follow-up strike could take the man's head off. The impact of stopping so suddenly at this speed sent shockwaves through the sand, creating a crater and a cloud of dust. The Colosseum fell silent. Barry stood in the center of the arena, Sub-Zero unconscious in his arms, staring at Scorpion's burning eyes. This close, he could feel the heat rolling off the undead warrior, could see the hellfire literally burning behind that skull mask. "This fight is over," Barry said firmly, his voice carrying in the sudden quiet. "I don't know what kind of tournament this is, but where I come from, we don't kill people for entertainment." Scorpion tilted his head, studying this crimson-clad intruder. Then he laughed, a sound like grinding bones. "Foolish outsider. You have interfered with Mortal Kombat. The penalty is death." From a throne that Barry somehow hadn't noticed before, a massive construction of skulls and dark metal overlooking the arena, a figure rose. He was enormous, easily 8 feet tall, with a build that suggested he could crush stone with his bare hands. His armor was a masterwork of intimidation, and his eyes glowed with malevolent intelligence beneath a horned helmet. "Who?" The figure's voice shook the very stones of the Colosseum. "Dares interrupt my tournament?" Barry set Sub-Zero down gently and turned to face the throne, his mind racing faster than his currently limited body could move. He'd faced world-ending threats before. He'd stared down gods and monsters. But something about this place, about that figure on the throne, set off every danger sense he'd developed over years of superheroics. "I'm the Flash," he said, "because even in another dimension, some introductions were necessary. And I'm guessing you're in charge here?" The giant's laugh was worse than Scorpion's. "I am Shao Kahn, Emperor of Outworld, Conqueror of Realms, and you, little speedster." His smile was predatory. "You have just volunteered for Mortal Kombat." The crowd's roar returned with volcanic intensity, their bloodlust finding a new target. Barry's heart hammered as he looked around the arena, quickly cataloging his situation. Limited speed, unknown dimension, surrounded by warriors who considered death sport. Not ideal. "I didn't volunteer for anything," Barry called up to Shao Kahn, trying to buy time to think. His mind worked through scenarios at superhuman pace, even if his body couldn't match it right now. "I'm just passing through. Wrong place, wrong time." "There is no wrong time for Mortal Kombat." Shao Kahn rose from his throne, and the sheer presence of the Emperor pressed down on the arena like a physical weight. "You interrupted a sanctioned match. The laws of the tournament are clear. You will fight, or you will die as a coward." Barry glanced at Sub-Zero's unconscious form. The Ice Warrior's chest rose and fell, alive at least. Scorpion had stepped back, his hellfire eyes fixed on Barry with an intensity that suggested he was memorizing every detail of this strange interloper. "If I fight," Barry said carefully, "what are the rules?" Shao Kahn's smile widened. "The rules are simple, Earthrealmer. 2 enter, 1 leaves. Your opponent will be chosen by..." "I will face him." The voice came from the arena entrance. A man strode through the gates, and even in a Colosseum full of monsters, he commanded attention. He wore simple monk's clothing, a red headband holding back black hair, and moved with the balanced grace of someone who'd spent a lifetime mastering their body. But it was his eyes that struck Barry. They held determination, yes, but also compassion. A warrior's eyes. but not a murderer's. Liu Kang, Shao Kahn's voice dripped with contempt. The champion of Earthrealm. How noble of you to volunteer. This outsider knows nothing of our ways, Liu Kang said, entering the arena and positioning himself across from Barry. His stance was ready but not aggressive. He acted to prevent a death. That is not the behavior of someone who deserves execution. It is the behavior of someone who does not understand where he stands, Shao Kahn countered. But very well, Liu Kang, champion of Earthrealm, versus the Flash of wherever. Let Mortal Kombat begin. Gongs sounded, their deep resonance shaking Barry's bones. The crowd's chanting rose to a fever pitch. Liu Kang bowed formally, a gesture of respect that seemed wildly out of place in this arena of death. I will not kill you, Liu Kang said quietly, his voice somehow carrying to Barry despite the noise. But I must fight. It is the law of the tournament. Defend yourself. He moved with blinding speed, not Flash level, but fast enough that most humans would never see the strikes coming. A spinning kick aimed at Barry's head, followed by a palm strike toward his chest. Barry's combat-trained reflexes kicked in, his own speed still sufficient to dodge. He ducked under the kick and sidestepped the palm strike, creating distance. I don't want to fight you, Barry said, blocking a follow-up punch. You seem like a reasonable guy. Can't we just talk about this? Words later, Liu Kang replied, unleashing a combination of strikes that forced Barry into pure defensive mode. Survival now. Trust me. A fireball materialized in Liu Kang's hands, actual fire, conjured from nothing and launched toward Barry. The speedster's eyes widened as he dodged, the projectile scorching the air where he'd been standing. Okay, that's new, Barry muttered. He'd fought metahumans with fire powers before, but this felt different. The energy wasn't coming from any biological mutation or technological source he could identify. It was pure mystical energy, shaped by will and discipline. Barry blurred forward, aiming to tap Liu Kang's pressure points, a technique he'd learned from Batman for non-lethal takedowns. But the moment he accelerated, pain lanced through his body. The Speed Force connection flickered and Barry stumbled, his momentum carrying him past Liu Kang in an uncontrolled tumble. The crowd laughed. Your speed betrays you, Liu Kang observed, helping Barry to his feet in a gesture that seemed to confuse the spectators. This realm resists your power. I can feel it. You are not of Outworld, nor Earthrealm, nor any realm I recognize. Yeah, I'm getting that impression, Barry grimaced, rubbing his chest where the Speed Force disconnect had felt like a physical wound. Where I come from, I can move faster than light. Here, I'm lucky to break the sound barrier. Then you must adapt, Liu Kang said, and attacked again. This time, Barry recognized it for what it was, a lesson disguised as combat. Liu Kang's strikes were precise, controlled, telegraphed just enough that Barry could read them. The champion was teaching him, using the fight as cover. Barry began to understand. He matched Liu Kang's rhythm, blocking and countering, making the exchanges look fierce for the crowd, while actually learning the flow of combat in this realm. Every punch, every kick, every movement was information about how fighting worked here when you couldn't rely on overwhelming speed. Outworld operates on different principles than Earthrealm, Liu Kang said between exchanges, his voice low enough that only Barry's enhanced hearing could catch it. Magic is real here. The Elder Gods are real, and Mortal Kombat is sacred law that binds the realms. Sacred law to have people kill each other? Barry shot back, ducking under a high kick. Sacred law that prevents Shao Kahn from simply invading Earthrealm and slaughtering billions, Liu Kang countered. He sent another fireball, which Barry dodged. The tournament is brutal, yes, but it is also the only thing standing between my world and conquest. 10 consecutive victories in Mortal Kombat grants the winner's realm the right to merge with the losers. Earthrealm has held Shao Kahn back for generations. Barry's mind reeled. Entire dimensions held hostage by tournament outcomes. It was insane, but the deadly seriousness in Liu Kang's eyes said it was absolutely real. "Enough!" Shao Kahn's voice boomed. "This is not a sparring match. Liu Kang, finish him, or face me yourself." Liu Kang's expression hardened. "Forgive me," he whispered. Then he moved with true speed, his dragon fire technique igniting as he flew at Barry with a flying kick wreathed in flames. Barry phased on instinct, or tried to. The technique sputtered, half working. He became semi-intangible, enough that Liu Kang's kick passed through him, but not enough to avoid the fire entirely. Pain seared across his side as he rematerialized, falling to one knee. The crowd roared its approval. Blood had been drawn. Liu Kang stood over him, fist raised for a finishing blow that would satisfy the crowd's bloodlust, while Barry hoped not actually killing him. But before the strike could fall, a bolt of lightning struck the center of the arena. When the light cleared, a figure stood between them. He wore a conical hat and simple robes, but power radiated from him like heat from a forge. His eyes glowed with electrical energy, and when he spoke, his voice carried the authority of divine mandate. "This combatant is under my protection," the figure declared. "Shao Kahn, you overstep your bounds. This one is not of any realm subject to tournament law." "Raiden," Shao Kahn growled, standing from his throne. "The Thunder God interferes, as always." "I do not interfere," Raiden replied calmly. "I enforce the ancient laws you claim to honor. This speedster fell into Outworld by accident, not by choice or challenge. He has no standing in Mortal Kombat, and therefore forcing him to participate violates the compact between realms." The two beings stared at each other, and Barry felt the air pressure change as enormous powers pressed against each other. Reality itself seemed to groan under the weight of their wills. Finally, Shao Kahn laughed. "Very well, Thunder God. Take your pet. But know this." His eyes fixed on Barry. "You have been marked, Speedster. Your presence has been felt across the realms. Others will come for you. Others who are not bound by Raiden's tedious rules." Raiden's hand came down on Barry's shoulder, and electricity arced through the speedster's body, not painful, but overwhelming. The arena, the crowd, the entire Colosseum dissolved into white light. Barry materialized in a place that felt fundamentally different from Outworld's oppressive brutality. The air was clean, smelling of incense and mountain springs. They stood in a temple courtyard, surrounded by architecture that blended ancient Asian aesthetics with something otherworldly. Monks in training practiced martial arts in perfect synchronization, and the sky above was a normal, blessed blue. "Earthrealm," Raiden said, releasing Barry's shoulder. The Thunder God's presence was less overwhelming here, more controlled. "My temple, you are safe for now." Barry's legs gave out and he sat heavily on the stone courtyard. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving behind the reality of what he'd just experienced. That was... He couldn't find words. "Your first taste of Mortal Kombat," Liu Kang said, appearing from one of the temple doorways. He carried a bowl of water and clean cloth. "You did well for someone unfamiliar with our ways." "I almost got us both killed," Barry said, accepting the water gratefully. "And I still don't understand what the hell is happening. One minute I'm chasing a temporal anomaly, the next I'm in Thunderdome with demons and ice ninjas." "You traveled between dimensions," Raiden explained, settling into a meditative position that somehow seemed both casual and impossibly dignified. "Your speed force, as you call it, is a dimensional constant in your reality. But here, In the realms governed by elder gods and bound by ancient magic, it is a foreign element. The fabric of Outworld actively resisted your power. I felt that, Barry said, probing his side where Liu Kang's dragon fire had scorched him. The wound was already healing, his enhanced metabolism still functioning even if his speed was compromised. Every time I tried to tap into the speed force, it was like hitting a wall. Not a wall, Raiden corrected. A filter. Your power operates on principles that do not naturally exist in these realms. The speed force must translate itself through our reality's rules, through magic, through chi, through the fundamental forces that govern us. Liu Kang sat across from Barry, his expression thoughtful. I felt it during our fight. Your speed is not like anything I've encountered. It's not enhancement through magic or chi manipulation. It's something else entirely. It's physics, Barry said automatically, then paused. Or it was, in my universe. I tap into an extra-dimensional energy field called the Speed Force. It gives me access to kinetic energy and lets me move faster than light, vibrate through objects, even manipulate time under the right circumstances. Time manipulation. Raiden's glowing eyes narrowed. That explains the temporal disturbance I sensed. Your arrival created ripples across multiple timelines. Great, Barry muttered. So not only am I stuck in a dimension where people kill each other for sport, but I've also probably screwed up the timeline. Again, the timelines of the realms are complicated, Raiden said carefully. We exist in a state of constant temporal flux due to the machinations of various powers. Your presence is certainly unusual, but perhaps not as catastrophic as you fear. A woman entered the courtyard, moving with lethal grace. She wore blue and black, her fans holstered at her sides, and her face was both beautiful and hard. Raiden, the council requests your presence. There are matters to discuss regarding the outsider. Thank you, Kitana, Raiden said, rising. Barry Allen, this is Princess Kitana of Edenia, currently allied with Earthrealm against her adopted father, Shao Kahn. Adopted father? Barry's mind struggled to process the implications. It's complicated, Kitana said dryly, as are most things in the realms. You stopped Sub-Zero from dying in the arena. Kuai Liang owes you a life debt, though he may not acknowledge it immediately. The Lin Kuei are not known for their gratitude. I didn't do it for gratitude, Barry said, standing up. His legs felt steadier now, his body adapting to this realm's physics with each passing moment. I did it because it was the right thing to do. A sentiment that will serve you well here, Liu Kang said, or get you killed quickly. Outworld does not reward mercy. Raiden moved toward the temple's inner sanctum. Liu Kang, help our guest understand the realms while I consult with the elder monks. Barry Allen, you are welcome in my temple as long as you need sanctuary, but understand, your presence has not gone unnoticed. Shao Kahn marked you publicly. Others will come. After Raiden departed, Liu Kang led Barry through the temple grounds, explaining the complex metaphysics of the realms. Earthrealm, Outworld, Netherrealm, Edenia, Order Realm, Chaos Realm. Each a separate dimension with its own rules, connected by portals and governed by cosmic law, enforced by beings called Elder Gods. Mortal Kombat is the mechanism by which realms can merge, Liu Kang explained as they walked through a garden where reality seemed slightly more stable than the world outside. It prevents the stronger realms from simply conquering the weaker through force. But it also means that our champions must be ready to fight, to kill if necessary, to preserve our realm's independence. That's barbaric, Barry said, though he kept his tone neutral. He'd learned not to judge other cultures too quickly. It is, Liu Kang agreed simply. It is also all that stands between Earthrealm and annihilation. Shao Kahn has conquered dozens of realms, billions of souls enslaved or destroyed. The tournament is brutal, but it is law even he cannot ignore without losing the support of the elder gods. They reached a training courtyard where several warriors practiced. Barry recognized Sub-Zero, or someone wearing similar armor, sparring with a man in a yellow outfit. A woman with purple hair tested throwing weapons against targets with mechanical precision. Your speed is impressive, but it's a crutch you can no longer fully rely on, Liu Kang said. If you're going to survive in the realms, you need to learn to fight without it. I know how to fight, Barry protested. I've trained with Batman. I've fought metahumans and aliens and... Liu Kang moved. One moment he was standing still, the next his palm was pressed gently against Barry's chest, in a strike that could have shattered ribs if he'd committed to it. Barry never saw it coming. You know how to fight with your speed as an advantage, Liu Kang said quietly. Here, your speed is unreliable. Your opponents will be masters of combat who have trained for decades, who channel mystical energy through every strike, who have died and returned to fight again. You need to learn our ways. Barry thought about arguing, then remembered the helpless feeling in the arena when his speed had failed him at a critical moment. Pride was a luxury he couldn't afford. Teach me, he said. Liu Kang smiled. Good. We begin immediately. What followed were the most grueling hours of Barry's life. Liu Kang was a patient but demanding teacher, breaking down every assumption Barry had about combat. Speed wasn't just about moving fast, it was about reading your opponent, understanding momentum, finding the perfect moment to strike. The monks trained to channel Qi, the life energy that flowed through all living things, using it to enhance their natural abilities. Your speed force and our Qi are not so different, Liu Kang explained, demonstrating a technique that let him momentarily accelerate his own movements. Both are energy drawn from sources beyond the physical. The difference is that Qi is native to these realms. Your body understands it instinctively, even if your mind does not. Barry tried to replicate the technique, focusing inward the way Liu Kang instructed. For a moment, he felt it, a different kind of energy, warm and steady, where the speed force was electric and kinetic. He threw a punch, and it moved faster than his current maximum speed, trailing golden light. Then the sensation vanished, and Barry nearly collapsed. What? What was that? Qi, Liu Kang said, catching him before he fell. You accessed it for a moment. With training, you could learn to blend it with your speed force, creating something unique to you. How long would that training take? Years, typically, but you are not typical. Liu Kang helped him to a bench. Your body already channels dimensional energy. Learning to channel a second type may come more naturally than you think. Over the next hours, Barry pushed himself harder than he had in years. Every exercise Liu Kang assigned was designed to break his reliance on pure speed and teach him to read combat through different principles. The other warriors in the courtyard watched with varying degrees of interest or disdain. The man in yellow, Johnny Cage, Liu Kang introduced him as, approached during a water break. So you're the guy who crashed Shao Kahn's party. Ballsy move, stopping Sub-Zero like that. It seemed like the right thing to do at the time, Barry said, still catching his breath. Now I'm not so sure. That's Mortal Kombat for you, Johnny said with a grin that seemed too casual for someone training for death matches. Everything seems like a good idea until someone tries to rip your spine out through your mouth. I'm mostly here because I thought it was a movie shoot. Boy, was I wrong. You thought interdimensional death tournaments were a movie? Look, in my defense, I'm from Hollywood. We fake this stuff all the time. Johnny's grin faded slightly. But yeah, this is real. Really real. And you've painted a target on your back, Flash. Shao Kahn doesn't forget. So I've heard, Barry said. He looked at his hands, still trembling slightly from chi exhaustion. But I can't just hide in a temple while people die in that arena. Noble, came a cold voice. Sub-Zero approached, his movements silent as falling snow. Up close, Barry could see the younger features behind the mask. This wasn't the same Sub-Zero from the arena. But foolish, you do not understand the forces at play, outsider. Then explain them to me, Barry said, standing to face the Ice Warrior. Because from where I'm standing, I see people dying for entertainment, and I see a system that perpetuates it. You see a shield that protects billions, Sub-Zero countered. Without Mortal Kombat, without its laws and structure, Outworld would have conquered Earthrealm generations ago. My brother, he paused, pain flickering across his features. My brother Bihan died in the last tournament. He gave his life defending this realm. That is the price we pay. Barry felt the weight of that statement. This wasn't just abstract philosophy. These were people who had lost friends, family, loved ones to maintain the tournament's balance. I'm sorry for your loss, he said quietly, but there has to be a better way. If you find one, Sub-Zero said, I will listen. Until then, Kuai Liang of the Lin Kuei thanks you for preserving his life. He bowed formally, then walked away, leaving frost patterns where his feet had touched the ground. As the sun set over the temple, painting the sky in reds and golds, Barry sat on the courtyard's edge, watching the warriors train. His body ached in ways he hadn't felt since he first got his powers. The kind of deep muscle fatigue that came from honest training rather than metabolic overload. Liu Kang joined him, carrying 2 cups of tea. You're thinking about going back? Someone has to, Barry said. Shao Kahn won't stop with Outworld, and if what you're telling me is true, he's only a few tournament wins away from conquering Earth. Earthrealm, Liu Kang corrected gently. Your Earth may be part of it, or parallel to it, or something else entirely. The cosmology of the realms is complex. Still, people are suffering, people are dying. Barry accepted the tea, sipping it carefully. It tasted like nothing from his world, spices and herbs that didn't exist in his dimension. That's not okay. It's never okay. Then you'll need to be ready, Liu Kang said, because the tournament continues, and Shao Kahn will find ways to force you back into it. He sees you as a prize to be claimed, or a threat to be eliminated. What do you see me as? Barry asked. Liu Kang considered the question carefully. I see someone who has the potential to change everything, for better or worse. Your power, your principles, they don't belong to any realm. That makes you unpredictable, dangerous, and possibly exactly what Earthrealm needs. In the distance, thunder rumbled despite the clear sky. Raiden emerged from the temple's inner sanctum, his expression grave. Barry Allen, we must speak. I have consulted with the Elder Gods, and what they have told me changes everything. The council chamber deep within Raiden's temple was unlike anything Barry had seen in the outer courtyards. The walls were inscribed with glowing runes that shifted and changed as he watched, depicting battles and cosmic events across countless timelines. In the center of the room stood a pool of water that reflected not the ceiling above, but swirling galaxies and dimensional boundaries. Raiden stood before the pool, his hands clasped behind his back. Liu Kang, Kitana, Sub-Zero, and Johnny Cage had also been summoned, forming a semicircle around the Thunder God. The air thrummed with divine energy, making Barry's connection to the Speed Force resonate in ways both uncomfortable and intriguing. The Elder Gods have spoken, Raiden began, his voice carrying the weight of cosmic authority. Barry Allen's arrival was not accident, nor was it random chance. There are forces at work beyond even Shao Kahn's machinations. What kind of forces? Barry asked, stepping closer to the pool. The reflected cosmos seemed to reach for him, images of lightning and speed forming in the water. Your speed force, Raiden said, gesturing to the pool, exists across infinite dimensions. But here, in the realms, it encounters something it has never faced before, the One Being. The water rippled, showing an image of something vast and terrible, a cosmic entity that defied comprehension, fragmented into countless pieces that became the realms themselves. The Elder Gods, the realms, all of reality as we know it here, emerged from the One Being's shattered consciousness, Raiden explained. When your speed force entered our reality, it touched upon those fragments. The One Being, even in its broken state, felt your presence. It recognized your power as something from beyond its own existence. And that's bad, Barry said. It wasn't a question. It's unprecedented, Kitana said, stepping forward. The One Being has been dormant for eons, kept fragmented by the Elder God's constant vigilance. But your speed force, it's waking something up. Barry felt his stomach drop. I'm going to cause some kind of cosmic catastrophe, aren't I? That's what you're going to tell me. Not necessarily, Raiden said, though his tone was cautious. But your presence has attracted attention from beings who seek to exploit any instability. Shao Kahn is the least of your concerns now. The pool's water darkened, showing a realm of shadow and flame. Barry could feel the malevolence radiating from the image, even through the mystic projection. Nether Realm, Sub-Zero said, his voice tight. The realm of the damned. Its ruler, Quan Chi, has already sensed you, Raiden continued. He is a sorcerer of immense power, and he sees your speed force as a tool to break the barriers between realms. If he can capture you, study your power, he could unravel the cosmic barriers that keep Netherrealm contained. So I'm a dimensional key, Barry said bitterly. Great, just great. It gets better, Johnny said sarcastically. Or worse, definitely worse. Raiden touched the pool, and the image shifted to show a figure wreathed in green energy. Even through the water, Barry could feel the overwhelming power radiating from the being, ancient, angry, and utterly inhuman. Shinnok, Liu Kang said, his hand instinctively moving to a defensive stance even though they were just looking at a projection. The fallen Elder God, imprisoned in the Netherrealm after his war against the other Elder Gods, Raiden explained. But his power has never waned, and his desire to escape has never diminished. Your speed force, its ability to move between dimensions, represents a potential pathway for his return. Barry ran a hand through his hair, feeling the weight of multiple realities suddenly pressing down on him. So let me get this straight. I accidentally fall into your dimension while chasing a time anomaly. My power starts waking up some cosmic primordial being. A sorcerer from hell wants to kidnap me, and a fallen god sees me as his ticket out of prison. Did I miss anything? You forgot the part where you're still bound by Mortal Kombat law, Sub-Zero added. Shao Kahn may be patient, but he won't forget your interference. He will find a way to force you back into the tournament. This is insane, Barry said, then laughed without humor. I fight supervillains. I've dealt with time paradoxes and alternate Earths. But this is a whole new level of complicated. Yet you're not running, Liu Kang observed. Even with limited speed, you could flee. Try to find a way back to your own dimension. But you haven't. Barry looked at the water, at the images of realms in turmoil and the forces gathering in the shadows. Because running won't solve anything. These problems don't go away just because I'm not here. And if my presence is causing instability, I need to fix it, not hide from it. Spoken like a true champion, Raiden said, and for the first time since Barry arrived, the Thunder God smiled. There may be hope yet. Hope for what? Barry asked. For balance, Kitana said. The Elder Gods maintain balance between the realms, light and dark, order and chaos, life and death. Your speed force is an external element, yes, but perhaps it can be integrated rather than rejected. Raiden gestured, and the pool's water calmed, showing Barry's own reflection. But different. Lightning crackled around him, mixing with red speed force energy. Golden chi energy swirled in the mix, and threads of blue mystical power wove through it all. What am I looking at? Barry asked, mesmerized by the image. Potential, Raiden said. Your speed force is trying to adapt to our reality. Each time you use your power here, it learns from the ambient mystical energy. Your training with Liu Kang has already begun the process. You touched chi energy, however briefly. I felt that, Barry said, remembering the golden light. It was different from the speed force, warmer, more alive. Chi is life energy, Liu Kang explained. The speed force is kinetic energy. They're complementary, not contradictory. With proper training, you could learn to channel both simultaneously. Creating a hybrid power unique to you, Raiden continued. Speed enhanced by Chi, Chi accelerated by the speed force, neither wholly of the realms nor wholly foreign to them. Barry stared at the image in the water, seeing possibilities unfold. How long would this training take? Months at minimum, Liu Kang said, possibly years. I don't have years, Barry said. You just told me that sorcerers and fallen gods are making plans to use me, and I still need to find a way home. Then we accelerate your training, Raiden said. The Thunder God raised his hand and electricity danced between his fingers. I can teach you to harness the storm, to blend my lightning with your speed. It will be dangerous, it will be painful, but it may give you the edge you need to survive what's coming. And Liu Kang will continue teaching you combat fundamentals, Kitana added. You need to be more than just fast. You need to be skilled. I'll work with you on strategy, Sub-Zero said, surprising everyone. At their looks, he continued, You saved my life, Flash. The Lin Kuei honor our debts. And more practically, if Quan Chi and Shinnok are moving against you, they're moving against Earthrealm. We face this threat together. I can teach you how to take a hit, Johnny offered. Because trust me, you're going to take a lot of hits. These bad guys don't pull punches. Barry looked around at the assembled warriors, champions of Earthrealm, defenders against impossible odds. They barely knew him, but they were willing to train him, to help him adapt to their reality. It reminded him of the Justice League, of the bonds formed through shared struggle. All right, he said, let's do this. But I have one condition. Name it, Raiden said. No one dies in the arena while I'm here. I don't care about cosmic law or tournament tradition. If there's a way to save lives while still playing by the rules, we find it. Silence fell over the chamber. Then Liu Kang started laughing, a genuine warm sound that broke the tension. What? Barry asked, confused. That's exactly what I said when I first learned about Mortal Kombat, Liu Kang explained. Raiden told me it was impossible, that the tournament demanded blood, demanded death, or it would be meaningless. And, Barry pressed, and I'm still looking for that third option, Liu Kang said. Perhaps with your unique perspective, we'll find it together. Raiden's expression was unreadable, his divine features revealing nothing of his thoughts. Finally, he nodded. Your compassion does you credit, Barry Allen. But understand, the forces arraying against you will not share it. They will kill without hesitation, torture without remorse, and use every weapon at their disposal to claim your power. Then I guess I'll have to be faster than them, Barry said with a confidence he didn't entirely feel. Even if my speed is limited here, Even if I have to learn a whole new way of fighting, I'm not giving up. Not on finding a way home, not on stopping these threats, and definitely not on trying to make this place better than I found it." The water in the pool suddenly erupted upward, forming a column of images, battles yet to come, choices yet to be made, destinies yet to be forged. Barry saw himself fighting alongside Liu Kang against shadowy figures. He saw himself facing down Shao Kahn in single combat. He saw lightning and speed colliding in ways that reality wasn't meant to contain. And in the depths of the vision, he saw eyes watching him, ancient, patient, and utterly inhuman, the one being stirring in its cosmic slumber. The vision collapsed, water splashing back into the pool. Everyone was breathing hard except Raiden, who looked grim. "The future is not fixed," the Thunder God said, "but the paths before us grow narrower. Barry Allen, your training begins at dawn. We have much to do and less time than I hoped." As the others filed out of the chamber, preparing for the intensive training ahead, Barry lingered at the pool's edge. His reflection stared back at him, looking exhausted and determined in equal measure. He thought of Iris, of the team back home, of Central City. Were they looking for him? Had time passed differently? Barry pushed the questions aside, one crisis at a time. First, survive. Second, get stronger. Third, find a way home that didn't tear apart the dimensional barriers between realities. Simple. Right. "Barry," Liu Kang called from the doorway. "Come. There's someone else you should meet before we begin tomorrow. Someone who understands being caught between worlds." Barry took one last look at the pool, where his reflection now crackled with tiny sparks of red lightning, then followed Liu Kang into the temple's depths. Whatever came next, he'd face it the way he faced everything, by running toward it at full speed, or at least whatever speed this crazy dimension would let him manage. Dawn broke over the Sky Temple with a brilliance that made Barry miss Central City's smog-filtered sunrises. Liu Kang had led him to a meditation chamber where a figure sat in perfect stillness, surrounded by floating candles whose flames burned in colors Barry's eyes struggled to process, blues that were too blue, reds that seemed to exist in dimensions his vision couldn't quite capture. "Night Wolf," Liu Kang said respectfully, "the Flash has arrived." The man opened his eyes, and Barry felt the weight of ancient wisdom behind that gaze. Nightwolf wore traditional Native American clothing, adorned with mystical symbols that glowed faintly in the pre-dawn light. A tomahawk rested across his knees, its blade inscribed with runes similar to those Barry had seen throughout the temple. "Sit, speedster," Nightwolf said, his voice carrying the rumble of distant thunder. "Liu Kang tells me you are caught between worlds. This is something I understand well." Barry sat cross-legged across from him, trying to match the meditation posture. "You're from Earthrealm originally. From a part of Earthrealm your Earth may not have, or may have lost," Nightwolf said. "My people were gifted with shamanic power, the ability to commune with spirits and channel the Great Spirit's will. I walk between the physical and spiritual realms, just as you now walk between your dimension and ours. Can you teach me how to navigate that?" Barry asked eagerly. "How to exist in multiple realities without tearing myself apart?" Nightwolf's expression was patient. "I can teach you balance. The Speed Force pulls you toward motion, toward kinetic energy and forward momentum. But to survive here, you must also learn stillness. Stillness is kind of the opposite of what I do," Barry said. "Is it?" Nightwolf gestured to the floating candles. "When you run, truly run at your fastest, what do you experience?" Barry thought back to those moments of pure speed when he'd pushed past Mach 5, Mach 10, approaching light speed. Everything slows down. The world becomes still, like I'm moving through frozen time. Then you already know stillness, Nightwolf said. You simply experience it through motion. Here you must learn the reverse, to find motion within stillness. For the next hour, Nightwolf guided Barry through meditation techniques that seemed impossible for someone whose mind naturally raced at superhuman speeds. But slowly, with effort that left him sweating despite the cool morning air, Barry found a rhythm. His thoughts, usually racing ahead to the next problem, the next solution, the next crisis, began to settle. And in that settling, he felt it. The pulse of the realms themselves, not the Speed Force's electric thrum, but something deeper, older, the heartbeat of reality itself in this dimension. Good, Nightwolf said softly. You're beginning to hear it. The song of the realms. Every dimension has its own frequency, its own resonance. Your Speed Force is trying to harmonize with ours, but it's fighting the process. How do I stop fighting? Barry asked, eyes still closed, maintaining the meditative state. By accepting that you are not separate from this place, Nightwolf replied. You fear losing yourself, losing your connection to home. But true balance means existing fully in the present while honoring all that you are. The Speed Force is not your home. It is part of you, and you carry it wherever you go. Something clicked in Barry's mind. He'd been treating his powers like a tool he wielded, something external that he accessed. But Nightwolf was right. The Speed Force wasn't just what he did, it was who he was. And if that was true, then it could adapt, could grow, could integrate with this new reality without him losing his essential self. Red lightning began to crackle around Barry's body, but this time it didn't feel strained or filtered. The energy flowed naturally, mixing with the golden chai he'd barely touched before. The combination created something new, sparks of orange-red energy that danced between his fingers. There, Nightwolf said, satisfaction in his voice. You're not forcing the Speed Force through our reality anymore. You're letting it become part of our reality. The difference is subtle but crucial. Barry opened his eyes, staring at his hands. The energy felt right in a way it hadn't since he arrived. Not his full power, not even close, but stable, reliable. He stood, testing his speed, and crossed the chamber in a blur that left orange-red afterimages. Still not light speed, probably not even Mach 2. But it was smooth, controlled, and it didn't hurt. Thank you, Barry said genuinely. I've been fighting this place since I got here. I didn't realize I needed to work with it instead. The lesson of balance, Nightwolf said, rising gracefully. Light and dark, motion and stillness, self and other. These are not opposites to be conquered, but partners to be harmonized. Remember this when facing what comes next. What is coming next? Barry asked. Nightwolf's expression grew grave. War in all its forms. The tournament continues, but beneath it, greater powers move. Quan Chi prepares his forces, Shinnok whispers from his prison, and Shao Kahn grows impatient with Raiden's protection of you. So basically Tuesday for a superhero, Barry tried to joke, but it fell flat. Come, Liu Kang said from the doorway. Raiden is ready to begin your lightning training, and Johnny wants to teach you what he calls the most important skill for surviving Mortal Kombat. Which is? Liu Kang's slight smile was answer enough. You'll see. They found Johnny Cage in the main training courtyard, surrounded by crash mats and padded equipment that looked like it had seen heavy use. The Hollywood star-turned-warrior was stretching, his movements showing the discipline of serious martial arts training beneath his casual demeanor. Flash, ready to learn the Cage family's secret technique? Johnny called out. Is it some kind of special strike? Barry asked, approaching cautiously. Nope, it's learning how to get hit. Johnny grinned at Barry's confusion. Look, you're fast, I've seen it. But even with your speed, you're going to take hits here. These fighters are the best in all the realms. They've been training since before you were born. Some of them have literally died and come back to keep fighting. So you need to learn how to take damage and keep going." "I have enhanced healing," Barry protested. "Great. That'll help when Scorpion's hellfire is burning through your chest, or when Sub-Zero freezes your blood, or when Shao Kahn hammer fists you into the ground hard enough to create a crater," Johnny said cheerfully. "Now, defense position." What followed was the most humbling training session of Barry's life. Johnny demonstrated how to roll with impacts, how to redirect force, how to protect vital organs when a hit was inevitable. Then he proceeded to hit Barry, controlled strikes that still hurt, over and over, forcing the speedster to apply the lessons in real time. "Don't tense up," Johnny shouted as Barry took a palm strike to the chest. "Tension makes you brittle. Flow like water, absorb the impact, redirect it." Barry tried, failed, got hit again. His enhanced durability meant the strikes wouldn't seriously injure him, but they still hurt. After an hour, he was covered in bruises and his ego was thoroughly checked. "Why does this feel worse than fighting Gorilla Grodd?" Barry groaned, accepting water from Kitana, who'd been observing with professional interest. "Because Grodd is a brute," Kitana said. "Strong, yes, and intelligent, but his attacks are ultimately predictable. The warriors here are artists. Every strike serves multiple purposes: damage, positioning, psychological warfare." "She's right," Johnny said, only slightly winded despite the workout. "In Hollywood, we fake fights. But here, every move matters. Every opening you give can be your last. You're learning to respect combat in a way your speed never forced you to." Raiden's voice boomed across the courtyard. "Barry Allen, it is time." The Thunder God stood at the courtyard center, and the air around him crackled with barely contained power. Dark clouds had gathered overhead despite the morning's clear skies, responding to Raiden's presence. "Your meditation with Night Wolf has prepared you," Raiden said as Barry approached. "And Johnny's lessons have reminded you of your vulnerability. Now you must learn to wield the storm itself." "I've been hit by lightning before," Barry said. "It's actually how I got my powers." "That lightning was mundane compared to what I command," Raiden said, not boasting but stating fact. "I channel the fury of the heavens, the judgment of the elder gods. It can empower or destroy. Today you will learn the difference." Raiden extended his hand, and a bolt of lightning jumped from his palm to Barry's chest. The speedster's world exploded into white-hot agony. Every nerve ending fired simultaneously. His heart stuttered, his muscles locked, and his mind went blank with pain. Then the speed force kicked in, metabolizing the energy, converting destruction into power. Barry gasped as the lightning integrated with his cells, his connection to the speed force suddenly blazing brighter than it had since his arrival. Red and blue energies mixed, creating purple lightning that danced across his body. "Again," Raiden commanded. This time Barry was ready. He opened himself to the lightning, let it flow through him rather than fighting it. The pain was still there, but he rode it like a wave, channeling it into his speed force connection. His body became a conduit, transforming divine electricity into kinetic energy. By the 10th strike, Barry was moving between the lightning bolts, his speed finally approaching what he remembered. Not full power, not yet, but closer than he'd been. The orange-red energy from his morning meditation mixed with Raiden's blue lightning, creating a corona of purple-orange light around him as he ran. "Excellent," Raiden said, lowering his hand. "You adapt quickly, but this is only the beginning. True mastery requires you to generate the storm, not merely survive it." "How do I do that?" Barry asked, his body humming with combined energies. "By understanding that lightning is not merely destruction," Raiden explained. "It is connection. It bridges heaven and earth, God and mortal, one realm and another. Your speed force already connects dimensions. My lightning connects the divine to the physical. Together, they can create pathways that shouldn't exist. Raiden demonstrated, his hands weaving patterns in the air. Lightning followed his movements, creating geometric shapes that hung in space. Doorways, windows, bridges between points. This is how I travel between realms instantaneously. This is how I appear where I am needed most. Dimensional shortcuts, Barry breathed, like my own portals, but using lightning as the medium instead of pure speed. Precisely. And if you master this technique, you may find a way to return to your Earth, Raiden said. But the training is dangerous. You must be strong enough to channel divine energy without burning out. Barry looked at his hands, still crackling with purple-orange lightning. Then let's get stronger. They trained through the day, Raiden teaching Barry to shape lightning into constructs, to read the flow of divine energy, to sense disturbances in the realm's fabric. Liu Kang joined them in the afternoon, demonstrating how to combine lightning with dragonfire, creating techniques that melded multiple energy types. As sunset approached, Barry stood in the courtyard, sweat-soaked and exhausted, but exhilarated. He raised his hand and concentrated, channeling both chi and speed force energy. A small bolt of orange lightning jumped between his fingers. "I did it," he said, amazed. "That was all me, no borrowed power." "A beginning," Raiden acknowledged, "but only a beginning. Tomorrow we train harder." As Barry walked toward his quarters, a simple chamber the monks had provided, Sub-Zero intercepted him in the hallway. "Flash, walk with me." They moved through the temple in silence until reaching a balcony overlooking a valley where the last light painted everything in shades of gold and crimson. Sub-Zero finally spoke, his voice low. "I owe you a debt. You saved me in the arena when you had no reason to, when doing so marked you for Shao Kahn's wrath. The Lin Kuei honor such debts." "I don't need," Barry started. "This is not about what you need," Sub-Zero cut him off. "It is about honor. My honor. Tomorrow I will teach you the secrets of the Lin Kuei, ice manipulation, stealth techniques, pressure point strikes. Not because you asked, but because I insist." Barry studied the Ice Warrior's masked face, seeing the determination there. "Thank you. I accept." Sub-Zero nodded once, then hesitated. "My brother Bi-Han died as Scorpion in the tournament. He was enslaved by Quan Chi, transformed into the specter you saw in the arena. When you stopped that fight, you prevented me from meeting the same fate. Hanzo Hasashi's vengeance is thorough." "Hanzo Hasashi?" "Scorpion's true name from when he lived," Sub-Zero explained. "He believes my brother murdered his family and clan. He was deceived by Quan Chi, but his rage is real and righteous. Eventually, we will face each other again. When we do," he paused, "perhaps you will be there to ensure honor is satisfied without unnecessary death." "I'll do everything I can," Barry promised. As Sub-Zero departed, Kitana emerged from the shadows. Barry jumped. He hadn't sensed her approach at all. "Your awareness needs work," she said dryly. "Tomorrow, after Sub-Zero's lessons, I will teach you to sense opponents without relying on speed. In Outworld, many enemies can cloak themselves from normal perception. You must learn to read intent, to feel the killing blow before it comes." "Is everyone in this temple going to train me?" Barry asked, overwhelmed but grateful. "You are important," Kitana said simply. "Not just because of your power, but because of what you represent. Hope, change, the possibility that the brutal status quo might be challenged. Raiden cannot say it openly, but many of us have waited for someone like you, someone not bound by the realm's ancient rules, someone who might find a different path forward." She handed him a small blue crystal. "This is a communication stone. If you are ever in danger beyond the temple's walls, Break it. I will come." Before Barry could respond, she was gone, moving with a princess warrior's grace. Barry returned to his chamber, every muscle aching, his mind spinning with everything he'd learned. He fell onto his sleeping mat, exhausted but unable to rest immediately. His fingers traced patterns in the air, small orange sparks following the movements. He was getting stronger, adapting, learning. But Nightwolf's words echoed in his mind. War was coming in all its forms. Barry closed his eyes, falling into meditation rather than sleep, and for the first time since arriving, he felt truly ready for whatever came next. 3 weeks passed in a blur of training that pushed Barry beyond limits he didn't know he had. Each dawn began with Nightwolf's meditation, centering himself between motion and stillness. Mornings belonged to Liu Kang's combat fundamentals, strikes, blocks, combinations that worked without relying on speed advantages. Afternoons were Raiden's lightning training, learning to channel divine energy through his Speed Force connection. Evenings were split between Sub-Zero's precision techniques and Kitana's awareness drills. Johnny Cage continued teaching him how to take punishment, joking that Barry was becoming less of a speedster and more of a speed tank. The Flash who emerged from that crucible was different from the one who'd crashed into Outworld. Leaner, harder, his movements carrying an economy that came from true martial discipline. His connection to the Speed Force had stabilized at roughly 60% of his normal capacity, not ideal but reliable, and growing stronger as he learned to blend it with chi and lightning. He could phase consistently now, though it required concentration. His healing factor still worked, processing injuries in hours that would take normal humans weeks. And his speed, while not approaching light velocity, had climbed to low supersonic levels. Enough to be formidable, enough to survive. On the 22nd day, Raiden summoned him to the temple's war room, where holographic projections showed the various realms and their current political situations. Liu Kang, Kitana, Sub-Zero, Johnny, and several other warriors Barry had trained alongside were already assembled. "The tournament schedule has been accelerated," Raiden announced without preamble. Shao Kahn grows impatient. He demands the next round of Mortal Kombat begin within the week. "That's 3 months early," Liu Kang said sharply. "He's changing the rules." He claims the Flash's presence constitutes a disruption that must be resolved through formal combat, Raiden explained, his expression grim. The Elder Gods cannot reject his petition without evidence that Barry is an official champion of Earthrealm. "So make me one," Barry said immediately. Everyone turned to look at him. "If Shao Kahn wants me in the tournament, fine. But I fight as Earthrealm's champion, under your protection, playing by the established rules." "You understand what you're offering?" Kitana asked. "Champions fight to the death. Victory or death are the only exits from the arena." "I understand," Barry said, "but I've been training with the best fighters in the realm for 3 weeks. I'm not the confused speedster who stumbled into that first match. And if my participation can buy us time, can prevent Shao Kahn from forcing a full invasion, then it's worth the risk." Raiden studied him with those glowing eyes that saw far more than the physical. "You have grown, Barry Allen. Your power has stabilized, your skills have sharpened, but more importantly, your understanding has deepened. Very well. I will petition the Elder Gods to recognize you as an official champion of Earthrealm." "Who will he face first?" Sub-Zero asked. "Shao Kahn will not waste this opportunity. He'll send someone formidable." The holographic display shifted, showing a massive figure in black armor. Barry felt his confidence waver. The warrior stood at least 7 feet tall, covered head to toe in metal that looked forged from nightmares. 2 sets of extra arms extended from his back, each holding wicked blades. "Goro's younger brother," Liu Kang said quietly. Kintaro, the Shokan warrior. He blamed Liu Kang for his brother's death and has vowed vengeance against any Earthrealm champion. 4 arms, Barry observed. That's going to complicate things. 4 arms, enhanced strength, centuries of combat experience, and a personal grudge against everything Earthrealm represents, Johnny added helpfully. No pressure, though. Can I ask a serious question? Barry said, studying the projection. What's the actual win condition here? I mean, the tournament is supposedly about preventing realm mergers, but that requires 10 consecutive victories for one side. Where does Earthrealm stand in the current count? 9 consecutive defenses, Raiden said heavily. Thanks to Liu Kang's victories in previous tournaments, Earthrealm has prevented merger 9 times. One more victory, and Shao Kahn's claim on our realm is nullified for another cycle. 500 years of guaranteed independence. And if we lose, then Outworld wins its 10th consecutive victory, and Earthrealm merges with Shao Kahn's empire. Billions of souls enslaved or destroyed. Your Earth, whether it's part of this Earthrealm or parallel to it, would fall under his dominion. The weight of that statement settled over the room like a funeral shroud. Barry's hands clenched. So this is it. The tournament that decides everything. Yes, Liu Kang said, which is why I should face Kintaro. I'm the defending champion. The responsibility is mine. No, Barry said firmly. If I'm officially a champion now, I can take matches, and strategically it makes sense. You're our ace, Liu Kang. If I can take down Kintaro, that's one less opponent you have to face later. And if you lose, Kitana asked bluntly. Then I lose, Barry said. But I don't plan on losing. I've fought metahumans who could bench press buildings. I've dodged attacks that move at light speed. 4 arms and enhanced strength. I can handle that. Confidence is good, Sub-Zero said. Overconfidence is fatal. Kintaro is not merely strong, he's a tactician. He's studied every Earthrealm champion's fighting style for decades. He will know how to counter speed, how to trap agile opponents, how to turn your strengths into weaknesses. Then I'll have to be unpredictable, Barry said. Use techniques he's never seen because they don't exist in the realms. Mix Speed Force with Chi with lightning in combinations that shouldn't be possible. Raiden raised his hand and lightning danced between his fingers. Then we have 5 days to refine your style into something truly unique. Something that even a Shokan warrior with centuries of experience cannot predict or counter. The next 5 days were the most intense of Barry's training. They weren't building fundamentals anymore. They were creating something entirely new. A fighting style that blended multiple disciplines and energy types in ways the realms had never seen. Nightwolf taught him to channel Speed Force energy through shamanic spirit techniques, creating afterimages that possessed actual substance for split seconds. Liu Kang showed him how to integrate Dragonfire with kinetic energy, allowing his strikes to carry explosive force beyond what his strength alone could generate. Raiden demonstrated lightning teleportation, letting Barry move between 2 points instantaneously by following electrical currents. Sub-Zero added ice techniques that could freeze Barry's own afterimages, creating solid decoys that would shatter when struck. Kitana taught him fan combat, which seemed useless until Barry realized he could create cyclones of super speed wind to amplify their cutting power. Even Johnny contributed, teaching Barry psychological warfare, trash talk, feints, the art of making opponents angry enough to make mistakes. By the 4th day, Barry had developed signature techniques that were entirely his own. Lightning Step, teleporting via Speed Force enhanced lightning, leaving behind an explosive afterimage. Rapid Fire Dragon, throwing multiple dragon fire projectiles while moving at super speed, creating patterns impossible to fully dodge. Kinetic Cascade, channeling Speed Force energy into his strikes, making each hit carry the accumulated momentum of a 100-yard sprint. Frozen time, combining Sub-Zero's ice with his own speed to create localized time distortions where everything moved in slow motion except him. On the 5th day, they held a full mock battle. Barry faced Liu Kang, Sub-Zero, and Johnny simultaneously, with Kitana providing tactical interference from range. For 10 minutes, the courtyard became a light show of conflicting energies as Barry pushed himself to integrate everything he'd learned. He didn't win. 3 experienced warriors coordinating perfectly were still beyond him. But he held his own, forced them to adapt, landed solid hits on all 3, and more importantly, survived without serious injury. "You're ready," Liu Kang said afterward, helping Barry to his feet. "Not perfect, but ready, and that will have to be enough." That night, unable to sleep, Barry stood on the temple's highest balcony, watching distant lightning storms play across the horizon. Tomorrow, he would return to Outworld. Tomorrow, he would step into the arena as an official champion. Tomorrow, he might die. "Can't sleep either," Johnny's voice came from behind him. "Too much nervous energy," Barry admitted. "I keep running through scenarios in my head, ways to beat Kintaro, backup plans if my powers fail, exit strategies if everything goes wrong." "That's your scientific brain working overtime," Johnny said, joining him at the railing. "You want my advice? Stop thinking so hard. When you're in that arena, instinct matters more than strategy. Trust your training, trust your team, and trust that sometimes the universe needs heroes to do impossible things." "Deep thoughts from Hollywood's finest," Barry said, managing a smile. "Hey, I've been doing this longer than you'd think," Johnny replied. "I walked into my first tournament thinking it was a movie, came out the other side having saved the world. You? You walked in already trying to save someone. That's the difference between a fighter and a champion." As dawn broke on the 6th day, the champions of Earth Realm gathered in the temple's central courtyard. Raiden stood before them in full divine regalia, his presence shaking the very stones with barely contained power. "Today, Barry Allen becomes the Flash of Earthrealm," Raiden declared. "Let the Elder Gods bear witness. This champion stands with us, fights for us, and carries our hopes into Mortal Kombat." Lightning descended from clear skies, striking Barry directly. But this time, instead of pain, he felt completion. The energy flowed through him, marking him in ways both physical and metaphysical. When the light cleared, his suit had changed. The red was deeper, accented with gold that matched the chi energy he'd learned to channel, and blue lightning patterns traced along his arms and legs. "Whoa," he breathed, looking at his transformed costume. "The mark of a true champion," Kitana said approvingly. "The realms have accepted you." "Then let us depart," Raiden said. "The portal to Outworld's arena awaits. Remember your training, honor your bonds, and may the Elder Gods watch over you." They traveled through Raiden's lightning portal, a sensation Barry was getting used to, and emerged in the staging area beneath Outworld's Colosseum. The familiar sounds of the bloodthirsty crowd filtered through the stone walls. Barry's enhanced hearing picked up the announcer's voice echoing through the arena. And for the first official match of this accelerated tournament, the champion of Earthrealm will face Outworld's Shokan champion. Prepare for Mortal Kombat. "That's your cue," Liu Kang said, clasping Barry's shoulder. "Remember, you're not alone in that arena. We're watching. Raiden is watching. Earthrealm is watching. Show them what a true speedster can do." Barry nodded, pushing down his fear, embracing the focused calm he'd learned from Nightwolf. He walked toward the gate that led to the arena floor, each step carrying him closer to a fight that would test everything he'd become. The gate rose and sunlight flooded in. The crowd's roar was deafening. And standing in the center of the arena, waiting with four-armed patience, was Kintaro, every bit as terrifying as the projections had suggested. Barry stepped onto the blood-stained sand, lightning crackling around his feet, ready to show Outworld that Earthrealm had a new kind of champion. The announcer's voice boomed, "The Flash versus Kintaro! Let Mortal Kombat begin!" The sand beneath Barry's feet was hot enough to radiate through his boots, and the crowd's bloodlust pressed against him like a physical force. Kintaro stood 20 feet away, his four massive arms flexed, each easily twice as thick as Barry's torso. The Shokan warrior's tiger-like features twisted into a predatory grin, fangs gleaming. "So," Kintaro's voice rumbled like distant thunder, "you are the speedster who humiliated the Emperor. I will enjoy tearing you limb from limb." "You can try," Barry said, sliding into the fighting stance Liu Kang had drilled into him. "But I should warn you, I've gotten faster since that first day." Kintaro charged with shocking speed for his size, four fists swinging in a pattern designed to box Barry in. The speedster blurred sideways, watching in satisfaction as all four strikes hit empty air. He countered with a kinetic cascade punch to Kintaro's ribs, a strike carrying the momentum of a freight train. The blow connected solidly. Kintaro grunted, stumbled back a step, then laughed. "That actually hurt," the Shokan said, sounding pleased. "Good. This will not be boring." Barry's confidence faltered. That punch should have cracked ribs, maybe even ruptured organs. Kintaro had barely noticed. The Shokan warrior moved again, but this time all four arms spread wide, creating a barrier impossible to dodge through. Barry switched tactics, using Lightning Step to teleport behind his opponent. He unleashed a rapid-fire dragon combination, 5 fireballs in rapid succession from different angles. Kintaro tanked them. The flames washed over his armored hide, leaving scorch marks but no real damage. He spun with impossible agility for his size, all four arms coming together in a devastating hammer blow aimed at Barry's head. Barry phased at the last instant, the strike passing through his intangible form. He rematerialized, already moving, circling at super speed to create multiple afterimages. The crowd gasped as 12 flashes suddenly surrounded Kintaro, all crackling with orange-gold lightning. "Clever trick," Kintaro acknowledged, spinning slowly to track them all. "But tricks will not save you." He slammed all four fists into the ground, creating a shockwave that disrupted Barry's speed and shattered most of the afterimages. Barry stumbled, his concentration broken, and Kintaro was there impossibly fast. 2 hands grabbed Barry's shoulders, while the other 2 delivered a brutal combination to his midsection. Barry felt ribs crack despite his enhanced durability. Pain exploded through his torso as Kintaro lifted him overhead and slammed him into the sand hard enough to create a crater. The crowd roared its approval. Through the pain, Barry heard Liu Kang's voice from the sidelines. "Don't fight his fight. Use your advantages." Right. He couldn't trade blows with a being who could shrug off superhuman strikes. He needed to be smarter. As Kintaro reached down to grab him again, Barry activated Frozen Time, the technique that combined Sub-Zero's ice with speed-distorted perception. The world shifted into slow motion. Kintaro's hands descended like they were moving through honey. Barry rolled aside, his ribs screaming protest, and launched himself to his feet. In the slowed time, he had room to think. Kintaro was strong and durable, but every fighter had weak points. Forearms meant complex joint articulation, more points where tendons could be struck. The tiger features meant sensitive eyes and nose, and that massive bulk required equally massive lung capacity. Barry targeted the back of Kintaro's knee with a chi-enhanced strike as time resumed normal speed. The The Shokan's leg buckled. Before he could recover, Barry was already moving, delivering rapid-fire strikes to pressure points along all four arms, locations Sub-Zero had made him memorize. Kintaro roared in frustration as his arms temporarily spasmed, nerve clusters disrupted by precision strikes. Barry pressed his advantage, using Lightning Step to appear at different angles, each teleport followed by a targeted attack. Temple, solar plexus, nerve clusters along the spine. It was working. Kintaro's movements were slowing, his coordination disrupted. The crowd's cheers turned confused. Their champion was being overwhelmed by an opponent a fraction his size. Then Kintaro did something unexpected. He stopped trying to hit Barry and started trying to predict him. When Barry teleported behind the Shokan warrior next time, Kintaro was already turning, one massive hand closing around Barry's throat before he could dodge. The Shokan's grip was iron, lifting Barry off his feet. "Predictable," Kintaro growled. "You always teleport behind opponents. You always strike at joints. You fight like a Lin Kuei assassin, efficient but formulaic." He began to squeeze. Barry's vision started to darken. He couldn't phase. The technique required concentration he couldn't muster while being strangled. He couldn't breathe to channel dragon fire. His lightning crackled uselessly around Kintaro's armored hide. Panic clawed at his mind. This was it. He'd been so focused on being clever, on using techniques, that he'd forgotten the most fundamental advantage he possessed. He was the fastest man alive. Barry stopped trying to be a martial artist and became what he truly was, a speedster. His hands became a blur, delivering not precise strikes but a hurricane of impacts. Hundreds of punches per second, each one individually weak but collectively devastating. Kintaro's armor began to crack. His grip loosened fractionally. It was enough. Barry vibrated at his molecular frequency, phasing out of Kintaro's grasp. He dropped to the ground, gasping for air, and immediately launched into pure speed mode. He ran circles around Kintaro, moving faster than the Shokan could track, creating a vortex of wind that lifted sand and debris into a blinding cyclone. Inside the vortex, Barry was everywhere and nowhere. He struck from a dozen angles simultaneously, not the careful pressure point strikes Sub-Zero had taught him, but devastating kinetic impacts enhanced by the momentum of running at supersonic speeds. Each hit carried the force of a car crash. Kintaro thrashed blindly, his forearms swinging at phantoms. But Barry was always somewhere else, his speed finally pushed to its limits by desperation. Orange-gold lightning traced patterns in the sand as he moved, creating geometric shapes that defied physics. Then Nightwolf's training kicked in, finding motion within stillness. Barry suddenly stopped running but didn't stop moving. He stood perfectly still at 12 different points around Kintaro simultaneously. His speed force enhanced afterimages becoming real through chi infusion. 12 flashes, all solid, all real for these precious seconds. They attacked as one. 12 kinetic cascade punches hit Kintaro from 12 different angles in perfect synchronization. The accumulated force was beyond anything the Shokan warrior could withstand. His armor shattered. His body lifted off the ground, and when he came down, he stayed down. The vortex dissipated. The afterimages faded. Only one flash remained, standing over Kintaro's unconscious form, barely able to stay upright himself. The crowd was silent. Then Shao Kahn's voice boomed across the arena. "Finish him!" Barry looked down at Kintaro's prone form. The Shokan warrior was defeated, helpless. One lightning-enhanced strike to the head would end him permanently. That was the rule. That was how Mortal Kombat worked. "No," Barry said, his voice carrying across the sudden silence. "What?" Shao Kahn's roar shook the Colosseum. "You dare defy the tournament's sacred law?" "I defeated him," Barry said, standing taller despite his injuries. That's what matters. I'm not killing an unconscious opponent. That's not justice. That's not combat. That's murder. You will finish him, or you will be declared a coward and forfeit. Then I forfeit my right to kill, Barry called back. But not the victory. Check your ancient laws, Emperor. The challenger must be defeated. He is defeated. I don't see any rule requiring me to execute him. Raiden appeared at the arena's edge in a flash of lightning, his timing impeccable. The speedster speaks truth. Ancient tournament law requires only that the opponent be unable to continue combat. Kintaro cannot continue. The Flash is victorious by legitimate measure. This is an outrage. Shao Kahn rose from his throne, his massive frame vibrating with rage. The tournament demands blood. The tournament demands honor, Raiden countered. Something you seem to have forgotten in your lust for conquest. The Elder Gods will judge this match fairly. For a long moment, the two divine beings stared at each other, and Barry felt reality itself straining under the pressure of their wills clashing. Finally, impossibly, Shao Kahn sat back down. Very well, Thunder God. Your pet speedster wins this match. But know this, mercy is weakness, and weakness will be exploited. Medical attendants rushed onto the arena floor. Surprisingly, they came for both Barry and Kintaro. Barry watched as they carefully lifted the Shokan warrior onto a massive stretcher. Kintaro's eyes flickered open, finding Barry's face. "Why?" the Shokan warrior rasped. "I would have killed you." "I know," Barry said, "but that doesn't mean I have to become you." Something shifted in Kintaro's expression. Not gratitude, but perhaps understanding. Then he was being carried away, and Liu Kang was there, supporting Barry as they headed back toward the staging area. "That was either the bravest or stupidest thing I've ever seen," Liu Kang said. "Can't it be both?" Barry managed a weak smile. "You started something today," Kitana said, appearing at Barry's other side. "By refusing the kill, by claiming victory through mercy rather than murder. You've challenged the foundation of what Mortal Kombat means." "Good," Barry said. "It's a brutal, archaic system that needs to change. Maybe I can't change it overnight, but I can at least show there's another way." Back in the staging area, Raiden healed Barry's injuries with divine lightning, a process that was becoming familiar if not comfortable. As his ribs knitted back together and his bruises faded, the Thunder God spoke quietly. "You've made powerful enemies today, Barry Allen, but you've also made unexpected allies. Kintaro will remember your mercy. That matters in ways you may not yet understand." "Will there be consequences?" Barry asked, "for not finishing him?" "Undoubtedly," Raiden said, "but not from the Elder Gods. Your victory was legitimate. Shao Kahn's rage stems from the fact that you found a loophole in his blood sport, and worse, you did it publicly. You've shown other fighters that mercy is possible within the tournament's structure." "How soon until the next match?" Barry asked, already dreading the answer. 3 days, Liu Kang said. "Traditionally, champions get time to recover between matches, but given Shao Kahn's mood, expect him to push for another accelerated schedule." As they prepared to return to the Sky Temple, Barry noticed a figure watching from the shadows of the staging area, a woman in yellow, her face concealed behind a mask, but her eyes burning with intelligence. She nodded once to Barry, then vanished. "Who was that?" Barry asked. "Trouble," Johnny said cheerfully. "That was Tanya, an Edenian traitor currently allied with Outworld. If she's taking an interest in you, it means the political wheels are starting to turn. Your mercy play didn't just affect the tournament, it affected the realm-wide power dynamics." They returned to the Sky Temple through Raiden's portal, and Barry collapsed onto his sleeping mat, utterly exhausted despite the healing. He'd won, he'd survived, and he'd stayed true to his principles in a place designed to destroy them. But as sleep claimed him, he wondered how long those principles could survive in a dimension built on violence, and what the true cost of his mercy would prove to be. The victory celebration was muted. Earthrealm's champions understood that one win, however impressive, was just the beginning. Barry spent the first day recovering, his body's enhanced healing knitting together the deeper damage that even Raiden's divine lightning couldn't instantly fix. But by the second day, he was back in the training courtyard, this time with an unexpected visitor. Kintaro stood at the courtyard's entrance, his armor repaired, his bearing proud despite the recent defeat. The assembled warriors immediately went on alert, hands moving to weapons. But the Shokan warrior raised all four arms in a gesture of peace. "I come under flag of truce," Kintaro announced. "I wish to speak with the Flash." Raiden appeared between them in a crack of thunder. "You dare enter my temple, Outworld warrior?" "I dare to honor a debt," Kintaro replied, his tiger features unreadable. "The speedster defeated me fairly and spared my life when tradition demanded my death. By Shokan law, I owe him blood debt. I come to offer information in partial payment." "Partial?" Barry asked, stepping forward despite Liu Kang's warning gesture. "What would full payment be?" "Your death in honorable combat, thus balancing the scales," Kintaro said matter-of-factly. "But that can wait until our debt is satisfied. For now, I bring warning. Quan Chi has made his move." The temperature in the courtyard seemed to drop. Raiden's eyes blazed brighter. "Explain." "The sorcerer has been watching the tournament closely. Your mercy, Flash, intrigued him. He sees in you a being of great power who refuses to embrace violence." To Quan Chi, "This represents weakness to be exploited, or alternatively, a tool to be corrupted. He has dispatched one of his deadliest servants to test you." "Who?" Liu Kang demanded. "Noob Saibot," Kintaro said, and Barry saw Sub-Zero's entire body go rigid. The Shadow Wraith, once a warrior of the Lin Kuei, now a creature of pure darkness serving the Nether Realm. "Bi-Han," Sub-Zero whispered, his voice hollow. "My brother." "Your brother's body, animated by Nether Realm magic and stripped of all humanity," Kintaro corrected coldly. "Quan Chi has scheduled Noob Saibot as your next opponent, Flash. It is meant to be a test. Will you show the same mercy to an undead assassin that you showed to me? And if you do, will it matter? The dead do not honor life debts." Barry's mind raced. "When?" "Tomorrow." Shao Kahn accelerated the schedule again. "Claiming your cowardice in not finishing me means you should face a stronger opponent immediately." "This is a trap," Kitana said. "Quan Chi is using Shao Kahn's pride to maneuver you into an impossible situation." "Everything here is a trap," Barry replied. "The question is whether I can spring it and walk away." "You cannot show mercy to Noob Saibot," Sub-Zero said, his voice flat with controlled emotion. "My brother is gone. What remains is a weapon, nothing more. If you hesitate, if you hold back, he will kill you without remorse." "What if I can save him?" Barry asked. "What if there's still something human left?" "There isn't," Sub-Zero cut him off. "I have faced my brother's revenant. There is no recognition, no memory, no soul, only darkness and the command to kill. Your mercy will be wasted." Barry looked to Raiden. "Is he right? Is there truly nothing left to save?" The Thunder God's expression was troubled. Nether Realm corruption is profound and nearly irreversible. But, he hesitated, "but you are unlike anything the realms have encountered. Your speed force operates on principles foreign to our magic. Perhaps you might perceive what we cannot. Perhaps you might reach what we have deemed unreachable. Or perhaps you'll die trying to save someone who cannot be saved," Kintaro said bluntly. Which brings me to the second part of my warning. If you fall to Noob Saibot, Quan Chi intends to claim your body for Netherrealm. Your speed force would make you a formidable revenant, fast enough that not even Liu Kang could stand against you. The implications hung in the air like a death sentence. If Barry lost, he didn't just die, he became a weapon against everyone he'd come to care about. Then I won't lose, Barry said with more confidence than he felt. Kintaro nodded slowly. My debt is partially paid. When next we meet in the arena, it will be without debt between us. Until then, Speedster, do not dishonor my mercy by dying foolishly. The Shokan warrior departed as quickly as he'd arrived, leaving the champions in troubled silence. We need to prepare you for shadow-based attacks, Liu Kang finally said. Noob Saibot doesn't fight like a normal opponent. He uses darkness itself as a weapon. Portals, clones, techniques that ignore physical defense. The training that followed was unlike anything Barry had experienced. Nightwolf taught him to perceive spiritual energy, to see the animating force behind revenants. Sub-Zero demonstrated the fighting style his brother had once used, showing Barry the patterns and rhythms so he could anticipate them. Raiden worked with him on purification techniques, ways to channel divine lightning that might burn away Netherrealm corruption. But it was Johnny Cage who provided the most unexpected help. You need to understand something about Quan Chi, Johnny said that evening, sitting with Barry on the temple balcony. He doesn't just want to win, he wants to corrupt. Every move he makes is psychological warfare. He's putting you against Sub-Zero's dead brother because he wants to break you emotionally, make you doubt your principles, force you to choose between your mercy and your survival. So what do I do? Barry asked. You do what you always do, Johnny said. You find the third option. Maybe you can't save Noob Saibot. Maybe Sub-Zero is right and there's nothing human left. But that doesn't mean your only choice is kill or be killed. There's always another angle if you're creative enough to find it. That night, Barry meditated deeper than ever before, reaching into the Speed Force connection and letting it show him the nature of the realms. He saw the energy patterns that made up reality here. The chi flowing through living things, the divine power of the elder gods, the corrupting darkness of Netherrealm. And he saw how his speed force existed outside that spectrum entirely, a foreign element that didn't fit any category. An idea began forming. Dangerous, possibly suicidal, but potentially the third option Johnny had mentioned. The next morning, as they prepared to travel to Outworld's arena once again, Barry pulled Sub-Zero aside. I need you to understand something, Barry said. I'm going to try to save your brother. I told you. I know what you told me, Barry interrupted gently. But I have to try. Not because I think I'm better than you or smarter than Raiden, but because if I start deciding who deserves mercy and who doesn't, based on what's realistic or practical, then I've already lost the part of myself that matters most. Sub-Zero was silent for a long moment. Then he placed a hand on Barry's shoulder. If you fail, I will not hold it against you. And if you succeed, he paused. If you somehow give my brother peace, the Lin Kuei will be forever in your debt. The portal to Outworld opened, and once again Barry found himself walking toward the arena. But this time the crowd's energy was different. Word had spread about his mercy to Kintaro. Some spectators jeered, calling him weak. Others watched with curiosity, wondering if this strange Earthrealm champion might do the impossible again. The arena gate rose, and Barry stepped onto the sand. Across from him, a figure emerged from shadows that shouldn't exist in broad daylight. Noob Saibot. He was dressed entirely in black, his face concealed behind a featureless mask, and darkness literally dripped from his form like oil. Flash, the Revenant's voice was hollow, echoing as if speaking from the bottom of a well. Quan Chi sends his regards. He looks forward to adding you to his collection." "I'm nobody's collectible," Barry said, sliding into his fighting stance. "And I'm sorry, but I'm about to ruin Quan Chi's day." "You cannot save me," Noob Saibot said, tilting his head in a distinctly inhuman gesture. "I do not wish to be saved. I am perfected, freed from the weakness of life." "We'll see about that," Barry replied. The announcer's voice boomed. "The Flash versus Noob Saibot. Let Mortal Kombat begin." Noob Saibot attacked by splitting, his shadow peeling off his body and attacking Barry from behind, while the Revenant himself struck from the front. Barry phased through the main body's attack and used Lightning Step to teleport away from the shadow clone. But the shadow followed him through the teleport, emerging from his own shadow to grab his leg. Ice-cold darkness flowed up Barry's body, burning like frostbite and acid combined. He screamed, channeling chi and lightning simultaneously, burning the shadow away. "Interesting," Noob Saibot said. "You contain multiple energies. Quan Chi will enjoy studying you." The Revenant moved through a series of attacks that defied physics, punches that came from impossible angles, portals that opened inside Barry's defenses, shadow constructs that grabbed and tore. Barry defended desperately, his speed his only advantage against an opponent who could attack from darkness itself. He tried Dragonfire. The flames passed through Noob Saibot like he wasn't there. He tried Kinetic Cascade strikes. The Revenant's body absorbed the impacts without effect. Nothing physical seemed to harm the shadow creature, which was why Barry had prepared something non-physical. He stopped defending and started running, using his full speed to create a vortex around Noob Saibot. But instead of wind, Barry channeled the Speed Force itself into the vortex, raw kinetic energy from outside the realm's physical laws. The vortex began to glow with orange-red light, and for the first time, Noob Saibot's movements showed hesitation. "What is this?" the Revenant hissed. "Speed Force," Barry said, pushing harder. "Energy from outside your reality. Energy that Netherrealm corruption doesn't know how to handle." He added Raiden's divine lightning to the mix, creating a storm of conflicting energies. Then, at the storm's peak, he did something insane. He dove into Noob Saibot's body while phasing, existing temporarily in the same space as the Revenant. Inside Noob Saibot's form, Barry could see the truth. Sub-Zero was right. The man named Bihan was gone. But the soul wasn't destroyed. It was imprisoned, locked away inside the darkness like a bird in a cage made of shadows. And Barry Allen, channeling Speed Force energy that existed outside the realm's laws, could reach that cage. "Hold on," Barry whispered to the imprisoned soul. "I can't free you, but I can give you a choice." He channeled everything he had, Speed Force, Chi, Divine Lightning, into one concentrated burst aimed not at destroying Noob Saibot, but at burning away just enough darkness to let the trapped soul remember itself. For one moment, Bihan's consciousness rose to the surface. Barry felt the soul's agony, its rage at imprisonment, its desperate desire for release. And then Barry made his offer, speaking directly to that tortured consciousness through their shared space. "I can end your suffering, but only if you choose it. I won't force anything. Just tell me, do you want peace?" The answer came not in words, but in a surge of grateful acceptance. Barry phased out of Noob Saibot's body, rematerialized 5 feet away, and delivered one final lightning step, a teleporting strike charged with divine purification energy, aimed directly at the point where Bihan's soul was imprisoned. The strike didn't destroy Noob Saibot. It freed Bihan. The Revenant's body froze mid-attack. For a heartbeat, the darkness flickered, and Barry saw a man's face beneath the mask, tired, grateful, at peace. Then Noob Saibot's form dissipated like smoke, the Netherrealm magic that animated it losing its grip. Barry fell to his knees, utterly exhausted. He channeled more power in that final strike than his body could safely handle. But across the arena, where Noob Saibot had stood, there was now only a small pile of ash and a single ice crystal, frozen tears that had somehow survived the Revenant's destruction. Sub-Zero was in the arena before the officials could react, moving to Barry's side. The Ice Warrior carefully picked up the crystal, held it to the light, and then pressed it to his chest. His shoulders shook once, silent grief finally given permission to surface. "Thank you," Sub-Zero whispered. "You gave him what I could not. Peace." The crowd was silent again, unsure how to process what they'd witnessed. Shao Kahn stood from his throne, his expression unreadable. Finally, he spoke. "The Revenant is destroyed. The Flash is victorious. 2 victories for Earthrealm." But his tone promised that this mercy, like the last, would have consequences. The victory over Noob Saibot had repercussions that rippled across all realms within hours. Barry spent 2 days recovering. His gambit to free Bihan's soul had pushed his body beyond safe limits, burning through Speed Force reserves he hadn't known could be depleted. Raiden's healing helped, but some exhaustion ran deeper than flesh. On the 3rd morning, Kitana burst into his chamber with news that made his blood run cold. "Quan Chi has formally challenged you," she said without preamble, "not in the tournament, as a sorcerer's duel. He claims you destroyed his property and demands satisfaction outside Mortal Kombat rules." Barry sat up too quickly, his head spinning. "Can he do that?" "Technically, yes," Raiden said, appearing in the doorway behind Kitana. "Noob Saibot was his creation, his servant. By the ancient laws of magical conduct, he can demand recompense for its destruction." "This is insane," Barry protested. "I was fighting in the tournament. That Revenant tried to kill me." "And you could have simply defeated him," Raiden replied gravely. "Instead, you purified him, freed his soul, permanently destroyed Quan Chi's years of work. The sorcerer sees this as an attack on his sovereignty over Netherrealm's servants. So I'm supposed to fight a realm-level sorcerer because I showed mercy?" Barry's laugh was bitter. "This dimension has the worst legal system I've ever encountered." "You can refuse," Liu Kang said, entering with Sub-Zero and Johnny. "Decline the challenge and remain under tournament protection. But Quan Chi will use your refusal to paint you as a coward. It will undermine everything you've accomplished. And if I accept, then you face one of the most dangerous sorcerers in all the realms," Sub-Zero said flatly. "Quan Chi has studied death magic for centuries. He commands armies of demons. He can manipulate souls themselves. Your speed will mean nothing if he traps you in a binding circle or possesses your body." "But," Nightwolf added, joining the growing assembly in Barry's small chamber, "you carry power he has never encountered. The Speed Force exists outside his frame of reference, and you've already proven you can disrupt Netherrealm magic. You freed Bihan from corruption that even the Elder Gods considered permanent." Barry looked around at the assembled champions. Despite everything, despite the danger, he saw something in their eyes. Hope. Not that he would win necessarily, but that he represented possibility. Change. A challenge to the status quo that had governed the realms for millennia. "When and where?" Barry asked. "The Nexus," Raiden said. "A neutral ground between realms where neither Earthrealm nor Netherrealm holds advantage. 3 days from now." And Barry. The Thunder God's expression was troubled. "Quan Chi will not fight fairly. Expect treachery. Expect psychological manipulation. Expect him to use every weapon at his disposal." "Then I'll just have to be faster than his treachery," Barry said with more confidence than he felt. The 3 days passed in a blur of preparation. Raiden taught him protective wards against possession and mental attack. Nightwolf showed him how to perceive and dodge mystical energy. Liu Kang drilled him on maintaining focus under psychological pressure. Even Johnny contributed, teaching Barry confidence as armor, how to project certainty even when terrified. But it was Sub-Zero who provided the most valuable gift. On the final night, the Ice Warrior approached Barry with a small vial containing crystalline liquid that glowed with pale blue light. "This is the essence of the Lin Kuei Cryomancer's power," Sub-Zero explained. "Normally, it takes years of training to wield ice magic, but if you channel it through your speed force the way you've learned to channel chi and lightning, it might give you an edge. Ice can freeze mystical constructs, entrap demons, even slow down magical attacks." "You're giving me your power?" Barry asked, awed. "I'm repaying a debt," Sub-Zero corrected. "You gave my brother peace. This is the least I can offer in return." Barry drank the essence, feeling cold fire spread through his veins. When he exhaled, his breath came out as frost. He channeled the sensation through his speed force connection and watched as ice crystals formed around his hands, glowing with orange-red light. "Speed force ice," Barry murmured. "That's new." The morning of the duel arrived too quickly. They traveled to the Nexus through one of Raiden's portals, a place that existed between dimensions, a vast circular platform floating in void space, surrounded by swirling cosmic energies. The platform's surface was inscribed with glowing runes, representing every realm's signature magic. Quan Chi waited at the platform's center, his pale skin and red markings, making him look like a corpse dressed in sorcerer's robes. His smile was predatory, and his eyes held malevolent intelligence that made Barry's skin crawl. "Flash of Earth Realm," Quan Chi's voice was silk over razors. "How gracious of you to accept my challenge. I've so looked forward to examining your unique energies up close." "Let's get this over with," Barry said, taking his position opposite the sorcerer. Around the platform's edge, representatives from various realms had gathered to witness, including Shao Kahn, who looked pleased at the prospect of watching Barry die outside tournament protection. "The rules are simple," Raiden announced, acting as officiator. "Combat until one combatant yields, dies, or is rendered unable to continue. Victory by any means necessary." "Any means," Quan Chi repeated, his smile widening. "How delightful." The signal came, and Quan Chi attacked immediately, not with physical strikes, but with a wave of skeletal hands that erupted from the platform beneath Barry's feet. The speedster blurred away, but the hands followed, tracking his movement with supernatural precision. Barry launched dragon fire at the skeletal constructs, but Quan Chi simply absorbed the flames, feeding them into his own magic. "Did you think fire would work against a master of Netherrealm?" the sorcerer mocked. "Fire is our domain," he countered with a blast of green hellfire that exploded where Barry had been standing. The speedster used Lightning Step to teleport behind Quan Chi, unleashing a kinetic cascade punch aimed at the sorcerer's head. His fist passed through empty air. Quan Chi was already elsewhere, having teleported through a portal of darkness. "You're fast," Quan Chi acknowledged, appearing 30 feet away. "But speed is irrelevant when I can simply step through space itself." He began summoning demons, grotesque creatures that crawled from tears in reality, their forms defying natural law. Barry found himself fighting on multiple fronts, his speed barely sufficient to keep the demons at bay, while watching for Quan Chi's next mystical attack. This wasn't working. He couldn't win a prolonged fight against someone who could summon infinite reinforcements. He needed to change the game. Barry stopped fighting the demons and started running, not away but in circles around the entire platform. He pushed his speed to the maximum this dimension allowed, becoming a blur of orange-red lightning. The demons tried to follow but couldn't match his velocity. More importantly, his movement began to create a vortex of speed force energy that disrupted the platform's mystical equilibrium. "What are you doing?" Quan Chi demanded, his confidence finally showing cracks. "Changing the rules," Barry called back. He channeled Sub-Zero's ice essence into the vortex, creating a storm of frozen Speed Force energy that began crystallizing the demonic summons. Then he added Raiden's divine lightning, creating a maelstrom of conflicting energies. The platform's runes began to flicker and fail. The neutral ground couldn't handle the presence of so much foreign energy. Reality itself started to destabilize around them. "You're going to destroy the Nexus," Shao Kahn roared from the platform's edge. "Then Quan Chi should surrender," Barry shouted back, pushing harder. The vortex expanded, its edges touching the sorcerer's position. For the first time, Quan Chi looked genuinely alarmed. The Speed Force energy was anathema to his death magic. It represented life, motion, forward momentum, everything Netherrealm stood against. The sorcerer tried to teleport away, but Barry had anticipated it. He'd laced the entire vortex with frozen Speed Force crystals that acted as dimensional anchors. Every portal Quan Chi opened closed almost immediately, the foreign energy disrupting his magic. "Impossible," Quan Chi snarled. "No single being should command such varied powers." "I'm not from your reality," Barry replied, the storm around him building to critical mass. "Your rules don't apply to me. Now surrender, or I'll keep pushing until this whole platform collapses into dimensional void. And I guarantee I can run fast enough to escape before it does." It was a bluff. Barely. Barry had no idea if he could actually escape a dimensional collapse. But Quan Chi didn't know that. The sorcerer's face twisted with rage and calculation. Finally, he raised his hands in a gesture of magical surrender, and the demons vanished. "I yield. For now." The vortex dissipated as Barry stopped running, leaving him standing in the center of the platform, every muscle trembling from exertion. Quan Chi glared at him with undisguised hatred. "This isn't over, speedster," the sorcerer hissed. "You've made an enemy today that will haunt you across lifetimes." "Get in line," Barry said tiredly. "I've got a whole rogues gallery where I come from." Quan Chi vanished through a portal of darkness, and the assembled realm representatives began to disperse. Shao Kahn lingered, his expression unreadable behind his horned helmet. "You continue to surprise, Flash," the Emperor said. 3 victories, 3 instances of mercy or restraint, where others would have shown strength through domination. I wonder how long your principles will sustain you." "As long as necessary," Barry replied. Shao Kahn laughed, a sound like grinding stones. "We shall see. The tournament resumes in 1 week. Your next opponent will be special. I'm saving my best for you." As they returned to the Sky Temple, Barry collapsed the moment they were through the portal. Liu Kang caught him before he hit the ground. "That was incredibly reckless," the champion said, though his tone held admiration. "You nearly destroyed a nexus point between realms." "But I didn't," Barry pointed out. "And Quan Chi backed down. That counts as a win in my book." 3 victories, Kitana said thoughtfully. "Against a Shokan champion, a Netherrealm revenant, and a master sorcerer. You're building quite a reputation, Flash." "Yeah," Barry said, letting them help him to his chamber. "Now I just need to survive whatever special opponent Shao Kahn has planned." That night, alone in his room, Barry stared at his hands. They still crackled with residual energy: red Speed Force lightning, golden chi, blue divine electricity, and pale ice crystals. He'd become something unique to the realms, a hybrid that shouldn't exist, but did. And somewhere in the back of his mind, he felt it, the faintest whisper of the Speed Force showing him pathways home. His connection was stabilizing, growing stronger. Soon, maybe, he'd have enough power to attempt a dimensional breach back to his Earth. But could he leave? With the tournament ongoing, with Earthrealm just 2 victories away from permanent safety, with warriors who'd become friends counting on him. The question haunted his dreams that night, mixing with visions of lightning and endless combat. The week passed with ominous quiet. No assassination attempts, no surprise challenges, no mystical attacks. The calm made everyone nervous. Shao Kahn was planning something, and the unknown threat loomed larger than any enemy they'd faced. Barry spent the time refining his hybrid techniques, pushing the boundaries of what combining multiple energy types could achieve. He discovered he could create frozen lightning that paralyzed mystical constructs and accelerated chi that let him heal injuries in seconds rather than hours. The Speed Force was no longer fighting the realm's physics. It was integrating, adapting, becoming something new. On the 6th day, Raiden summoned everyone to the war room. The holographic display showed something that made Barry's blood run cold, a figure in the arena that radiated power visible even through the projection. Shang Tsung, Raiden said grimly, the shape-shifting sorcerer, Shao Kahn's right hand, and one of the most dangerous beings in Outworld. He was Liu Kang's opponent in the last tournament, a fight Liu Kang barely survived. And now he's my problem, Barry said, studying the sorcerer's image. Shang Tsung looked deceptively ordinary, an aging man in elaborate robes, but the energy surrounding him was anything but ordinary. Shang Tsung can steal souls, Liu Kang explained, his voice tight. Every warrior he's killed, he can become. He knows their techniques, their fighting styles, their powers. He's a library of combat experience spanning centuries. And he can transform into anyone he's encountered, Kitana added, including people you care about. He'll use psychological warfare, try to make you hesitate by wearing familiar faces. Can he copy my powers? Barry asked. Unknown, Raiden admitted. Your Speed Force is unique, but Shang Tsung is adaptable. Even if he can't replicate your exact abilities, he'll find ways to counter them. There's more, Nightwolf said quietly. I've consulted the spirits. They show me something troubling about your upcoming match. Shang Tsung doesn't fight alone. Not truly. He carries the souls of the damned within him. When you face him, you face hundreds of warriors simultaneously. Barry absorbed this information, his strategic mind working through scenarios. What's his weakness? Everyone has one. Pride, Johnny said unexpectedly. I've watched his matches. Shang Tsung is supremely confident in his superiority. He toys with opponents, shows off, tries to break them psychologically before finishing them physically. If you can exploit that arrogance. I might find an opening, Barry finished. Okay, I can work with that. The final day arrived too quickly. As they prepared to travel to Outworld's arena, Sub-Zero approached Barry with unusual formality. The Lin Kuei have declared you a brother of our clan, the Ice Warrior said. You freed Bi-Han's soul and avenged his corruption. We stand with you, Flash, regardless of what comes. The Edenian resistance supports you as well, Kitana added, presenting Barry with a blue silk scarf. For luck. And to remind you that mercy can be its own form of strength. Even Johnny contributed, clasping Barry's shoulder. Remember, you're not just fighting for yourself. You're fighting for everyone who believes a better way is possible. No pressure, though. Liu Kang was last, pulling Barry aside as they approached the portal. Whatever happens in that arena, know that you've already changed things. The tournament may never be the same after you. That matters, Barry, more than any single victory. They emerged in Outworld's Coliseum to a crowd larger than any Barry had seen. Word had spread across the realms. The Flash versus Shang Tsung, Mercy versus Soul Stealing, the speedster who refused to kill facing the sorcerer who collected deaths like trophies. Shao Kahn sat on his throne, radiating satisfaction. This was the match he'd been building toward. Either the Flash would fall and serve as an example of weakness, or Shang Tsung would claim a powerful soul for Outworld's arsenal. Win-win for the Emperor. Barry walked onto the sand, and the crowd's reaction was mixed. Jeers from Outworld supporters, uncertain cheers from others who'd heard of his victories. The atmosphere was electric with anticipation. Shang Tsung stood waiting, his smile carrying centuries of malicious confidence. Flash of Earth Realm, I've so looked forward to this encounter. Your soul will make a fine addition to my collection. Not interested in being collected, Barry replied, settling into his fighting stance. But thanks for the offer. Such bravado, Shang Tsung purred. Let's see how long it lasts. The announcer's voice boomed. Shang Tsung versus the Flash. This match determines the tournament's momentum. Let Mortal Kombat begin. Shang Tsung attacked immediately, but not as himself. His form blurred and shifted, and suddenly Barry was facing Scorpion, complete with burning chains and hellfire. The kunai flew with the real Scorpion's deadly precision. Barry dodged, his enhanced reflexes barely sufficient. But his mind raced. This wasn't actually Scorpion. The movements were slightly off, the hellfire less intense. Shang Tsung was copying the form, but not quite capturing the essence. The sorcerer shifted again, becoming Sub-Zero. Ice daggers flew at Barry from multiple angles. Barry countered with his own ice powers, the Speed Force-enhanced cryomancy Sub-Zero had gifted him. The two ice attacks collided mid-air and exploded into crystalline shards. Interesting, Shang Tsung said, shifting back to his true form. You've acquired abilities since arriving. How delightfully unexpected. He began cycling through forms rapidly. Liu Kang's dragon fire, Kitana's fan blades, even Kintaro's four-armed assault. Each transformation was perfect in detail, each attack executed with the original warrior's skill. Barry found himself defending against an entire army's worth of techniques compressed into a single opponent. But Barry noticed something crucial. Each time Shang Tsung transformed, there was a split-second delay. The briefest moment of vulnerability as the soul-stolen form settled into place. It was minuscule, barely perceptible even at super speed, but it was there. Barry began baiting transformations, feinting toward weaknesses that would make Shang Tsung shift to counter. Each time, Barry moved during that split-second window, landing hits that the sorcerer couldn't fully defend against. Clever, Shang Tsung acknowledged, bleeding from a dozen small wounds, but insufficient. The sorcerer's form erupted with green energy, and suddenly Barry was facing multiple opponents simultaneously. Shang Tsung had summoned physical manifestations of stolen souls, ghostly warriors that surrounded Barry with coordinated attacks. This was what Nightwolf had warned about. Barry couldn't fight them all, so he didn't try to fight them. Instead, he did what he'd done with Noob Saibot. He reached out with his Speed Force perception, trying to sense the souls trapped within Shang Tsung's corruption. And he heard them. Hundreds of voices screaming silently, begging for release. "Oh no," Shang Tsung said, suddenly understanding Barry's intent. "You wouldn't dare. You cannot free them all. The effort would destroy you." "Maybe," Barry admitted, "but I have to try." He began running, channeling every energy type he'd learned to wield. Speed Force, Chi, Divine Lightning, Cryomancy, all of it woven together in a pattern he'd never attempted. The vortex that formed around Shang Tsung wasn't meant to destroy, but to purify, to burn away the binding magic that kept souls enslaved. Shang Tsung screamed as his stolen powers began unraveling. The ghostly warriors dissipated, their souls freed from bondage. The sorcerer tried to counter, throwing every technique he possessed at Barry, but the speedster phased through them all, his focus absolute. "Impossible!" Shang Tsung shrieked. "I am eternal." I have consumed souls for 1,000 years. Then it's time you gave them back, Barry said, pushing harder. The purification energy reached critical mass. Souls began streaming from Shang Tsung's body. Hundreds of them, thousands, an endless parade of warriors finally released from their prison. Each departure weakened the sorcerer, stripped away his stolen powers, reduced him from an immortal threat to a mortal man. When it was done, Shang Tsung collapsed to his knees, aged and frail, all his stolen youth and power gone. Barry stood over him, exhausted beyond measure but still conscious. "Finish him," Shao Kahn roared, standing from his throne. "The tournament demands it." Barry looked down at the broken sorcerer, then at the crowd, then at Shao Kahn himself. "No," he said simply. "I've freed the souls he imprisoned. That's justice. Killing him now would just be revenge." "You dare defy me again?" Shao Kahn's fury shook the Colosseum. "I dare to show mercy," Barry replied, turning to face the Emperor directly. "4 times now I've won without killing. 4 times I've proven there's another way. Maybe it's time you considered that strength doesn't always mean domination." For a long moment, reality seemed to hold its breath. Then Raiden appeared at the arena's edge, his divine presence overwhelming. "4 victories for Earthrealm," the Thunder God declared. "By ancient law, the Flash has earned his realm the right to refuse merger for another cycle. The tournament is suspended." "Not quite," a new voice said. Quan Chi materialized beside Shao Kahn's throne, his expression triumphant. "There's a technicality. The Flash isn't truly of Earthrealm. He's from another dimension entirely. His victories cannot count toward Earthrealm's total." The crowd erupted in confusion. Barry felt his heart sink. All of this, all his battles, potentially meaningless on a technicality. But Raiden smiled, actually smiled. "I anticipated this argument, sorcerer, which is why I petitioned the Elder Gods to recognize Barry Allen as an official champion of Earthrealm. They granted my request. His victories stand." Quan Chi's expression darkened. Shao Kahn's fury was palpable, but even they couldn't overrule the Elder Gods directly. "This isn't over," Shao Kahn growled. "We will meet again, Flash, and next time your mercy will be your undoing." "Maybe," Barry said, "but until then, Earthrealm is safe. That's what matters." As the crowd slowly dispersed, as Shang Tsung was dragged away to whatever fate awaited him, Barry felt the full weight of exhaustion finally crash down. He'd done it. 4 victories. Earthrealm was safe for another cycle, but more than that, he'd proven something to himself and to the realms, that mercy could be strength, that there were alternatives to endless violence, that change was possible even in the most brutal systems. Liu Kang was there to catch him when his legs finally gave out. "You did it," the champion said, genuine awe in his voice. 4 victories without a single kill. The realms will remember this, Barry. You've started something that cannot be stopped. As they prepared to return to the Sky Temple, Barry felt his Speed Force connection surge, stronger than it had been since his arrival. Finally stable enough to attempt what he'd been dreading and hoping for in equal measure. He could go home. The celebration at the Sky Temple was subdued but genuine. Earthrealm was safe for another 500 years, and Barry had proven that the tournament's brutal traditions could be challenged. But as the others celebrated, Barry stood alone on the highest balcony, staring at his hands as red lightning danced between his fingers with the same fluidity it had possessed back home. Liu Kang found him there as the twin suns of this dimension began to set. "You're thinking about leaving." "I can feel it," Barry admitted. "The Speed Force connection is strong enough now. I could run fast enough to breach dimensions, get back to my Earth. My friends, my life, Iris, they're all waiting. But But you've made connections here too, Liu Kang finished. You've seen that your presence matters, that you've started changing things. 4 victories without killing, Barry said quietly. That shouldn't be revolutionary, but here it is. What happens when I leave? Does everything go back to the way it was? Perhaps, Liu Kang said, or perhaps the seed you've planted will grow. Already I've heard warriors discussing alternatives to death matches. Kitana speaks of reforming Edenia along similar principles. Sub-Zero has declared the Lin Kuei will honor your methods. Change rarely happens quickly, but it happens. Raiden materialized beside them, his presence warm rather than overwhelming. Barry Allen, you have fulfilled your obligation to Earthrealm and more. No one would fault you for returning home. But, Barry prompted, but the realms are vast, Raiden said, and the tournament is only one conflict among many. Quan Chi and Shinnok still plot in Netherrealm. Shao Kahn still dreams of conquest, and your unique abilities, your outside perspective, they could continue making a difference if you chose to stay. Barry thought about Central City, about the Flash Museum that hopefully still existed in his absence, about Cisco and Caitlin and Joe. He thought about Iris, about the life he'd built, the responsibilities he carried. Then he thought about Sub-Zero's gratitude when his brother found peace, about Liu Kang's hope that mercy might become accepted, about the countless souls freed from Shang Tsung's corruption, about warriors across the realms watching his matches and wondering if strength through domination was truly the only path. I need to go home, Barry said finally. My Earth needs the Flash. But he turned to face Raiden and Liu Kang fully. But this dimension, these realms, they're part of the multiverse too, and if I can find a way to travel between them reliably, to help when needed without abandoning my responsibilities, then you would be welcomed as an ally of Earthrealm, Raiden said. Always. The next morning, with all the champions assembled, Barry prepared to make his attempt. Nightwolf had helped him find the perfect location, a nexus point where the dimensional barriers were thinnest. Sub-Zero had provided ice crystals to mark his path, so he might find his way back. Kitana had given him a communication artifact that would work across dimensions if his Speed Force connection remained stable. Don't be a stranger, Johnny said, attempting levity despite the emotion in his voice. The realms could use more heroes who don't default to ultraviolence. The Lin Kuei consider you a brother, Sub-Zero said formally. Should you return, you will always have allies. And if you don't return, Kitana added with a slight smile, we'll understand that you have your own realm to protect, but we'll remember what you showed us. Liu Kang was last, clasping Barry's hand in the warrior's grip. You taught me something important, Barry. That principles don't have to bend to survive brutal circumstances. Sometimes, holding to your principles changes the circumstances instead. Thank you. Barry felt tears threatening but blinked them back. Take care of each other and keep pushing for that third option, the one where nobody has to die for peace. He began to run, channeling every energy type he'd learned to wield. Speed Force Red mixed with Chi Gold, Divine Blue Lightning, and Cryomantic White, creating a rainbow corona around him as he accelerated. The dimensional barriers resisted, then yielded, recognizing the hybrid power he'd become. Reality shattered around him in a kaleidoscope of infinite possibilities. He ran through the void between worlds, following the Speed Force's pull toward home. And as he ran, he felt the Mortal Kombat dimension falling away behind him, but not disappearing. It remained connected to him now, a new branch in his understanding of the multiverse. He emerged in Central City with a crack of thunder, tumbling to a stop in an alley behind Star Labs. For a moment, he just lay there, feeling Earth's familiar gravity, breathing air that tasted like home. Then his communicator crackled to life. Cisco's voice panicked. Barry? Barry? Where have you been? You've been missing for 3 days and there's a metahuman tearing up downtown and… 3 days. Only 3 days had passed here while he spent weeks in the Mortal Kombat dimension. Time flowed differently between realities. Barry pushed himself up, checked his suit, still marked with the gold and blue accents from Raiden's blessing. I'm on my way, Cisco, and I've got one hell of a story to tell you. He ran toward downtown, toward the crisis, toward his responsibilities as Central City's protector. But he ran differently now. Faster, yes, but also with techniques learned from warriors in another dimension. His speed carried echoes of chi and lightning, and his mind held the memory of a place where mercy had been revolutionary. The metahuman never stood a chance. Barry's hybrid fighting style, refined in Mortal Kombat's brutal arenas, made short work of the threat, and he did it without causing serious injury, proving to himself that the lessons worked in his home dimension too. Later, explaining his absence to Team Flash, showing them the artifacts he'd brought back, Barry realized something important. The Mortal Kombat dimension wasn't an isolated incident. It was a reminder that the multiverse was vast, filled with places that needed heroes, systems that needed challenging, and people who deserved mercy even when local custom demanded otherwise. He'd return there someday, when the realms needed him. But for now, Central City had its flashback. And somewhere across dimensional barriers, in a temple on a mountain in Earthrealm, warriors trained with new techniques, fought with new philosophies, and remembered that speed and mercy could both be forms of strength. The realms had been changed by the Flash's presence, and the Flash had been changed by the realms. It was an exchange that would echo across realities for years to come, a reminder that even the most brutal traditions could be challenged by someone brave enough to run toward the impossible and refuse to accept "that's how it's always been" as the final answer. May the Force be with you. More stories await.